Hello, Posh Partners, and thanks again for joining me today. Today is going to be a little bit of a different type of video for personal reasons. So, as some of you already are aware through social media, my father passed away a few weeks ago. He and I were very close, and he lived to the age of 92. And I was blessed enough to be by his side the entire time and most of his life. And so, first of all, I want to start out by saying thank you so much to everyone who has expressed, um, reached out to me, expressed kindness and prayers and just thoughts of love and memories, and shared some really great memories with me. And I just wanted to say thanks for that. So let me shift from my personal viewpoint and explain a little bit about why today I'm going to be talking about death and grieving. And this is not in any way intended to be a professional video, counseling video, anything to that effect whatsoever. What I would like to do is talk about a little bit about the history of why we do some of the things that we do when we are mourning and when someone, a loved one, a friend, a family member passes away. And if you're in the South, or if you are a born and bred Southerner like I am, you will know that times have changed quite a bit in terms of the rules and regulations regarding what we do when someone we love, or a friend, or even an associate passes away. So let me start off, first of all, by talking about what used to happen in the 1800s, late Civil War, early into the 1900s. We actually had a very specific set of rules regarding mourning, what was appropriate, what was not appropriate. And I wanted to just read you a couple of things here, because I think you will find it very interesting compared to what we are experiencing now post COVID, with the way people are handling services and mourning, and just painful periods of our life. And I think that probably a lot of you are scratching your head and going, well, I don't really understand why she's talking about this depressing subject. Um, as a lot of you know, what I've been trying to do on my channel is somewhat redefine what a posh life really means. And I talk a lot about relationships, creating memories, and creating special occasions for you, your family, your loved ones. And part of that is honoring someone, whether it is our veterans, our fallen troops, or even if it's someone that's very, very close to us, like I am taking a few ways to personally honor my father in somewhat of a private manner, which I'm going to explain here. So I guess it's not that private anymore. Um, but let me get back. Let me get back to the history, and let me read you a little bit about that, and then I'll get further into my comments. So, for a husband or a wife passing away during this time period of the 1800s, moving into the 1900s, a husband or a wife could stay in mourning, official mourning, and I'll explain that in a minute, from up to 1 to 2 years. And some widows even remained in mourning for their entire life. So, what does that mean? Um, so, there was a very strict dress code for mourning, Many of you are familiar with Queen Victoria and her husband, Prince Albert. And one of my very lovely, unofficially adopted children put my face on a portrait of Queen Victoria. Now, Queen Victoria, in her early years before she married Prince Albert, whom she cared about a tremendous amount, they did everything together, they ruled the country together. She was devoted to him, he was devoted to her. And when he died, she was completely devastated and went into officially this mourning period for several years. So much so that even people in the country would, I'm so sorry, were expressing concerns about the fact that she possibly was not running the country. She wasn't interested in running the country anymore. She was so absorbed in her own personal loss and her grief. And so for the rest of her life, Queen Victoria wore black. And then there were three phases of mourning, especially for women. For men, it was a little bit easier. Most of the time, they wore a dark suit for a period of time, or they wore a lighter colored suit but always wore a black armband, which is a tradition that we see used very brief for a brief period of time. For example, I was watching Man City soccer team a few weeks ago and noticed that they had black armbands on their jerseys. And so was to honor the memory of someone who had been quite involved with their team and the history of their club. And it was just a way that they honored them. You see this in professional sports many times, or you'll see them, paint initials or a number or something on their helmet or have it on their jersey somewhere. So kind of similar, but that's where that tradition comes from, is this official period of mourning and what people used to do. So if your parent or your grandparent passed away, you would spend 6 months to a year in official mourning. And that would also limit your social activities. Like I said before, it would definitely affect the colors that you would wear, especially if you were a woman. If you were in what they called deep mourning, which was the period immediately after someone's death up to a year or two, you would wear black. You would wear no jewelry except for what is called jet, which is actually jewelry made of black stones. So you would be completely in black. Um, in the early 1800s, they would also wear completely long black veils that would cover their entire face. And that became less of an issue as we move towards the 1900s. There's a great scene in Gone with the Wind where Scarlett shocks the entire society of Atlanta by going and dancing with Rhett Butler at a public occasion when she is in full mourning. She has on total black, and you see her veil coming out of her hat goes the full length of her entire body. And so, just a few things about how we got to wearing black, and when someone passes away, and how that has affected some of our modern day customs. Today's rules is kind of, there are no rules. I do remember when I was growing up that if someone passed away, we would place a white wreath on the family's door, and everyone would know that that family was in mourning, and to, basically kind of leave them alone. there were certain times where you would call on the family, but not um, so much to interrupt their grieving. And I always think, and I still think that is a very subtle way to honor the person that you've lost. And then one of the other things that has really made the biggest change, I think, in our society is our change in our dress, especially post COVID. So now we're seeing people are not holding funerals anymore. They are not holding services. For my family, we chose to do something very, very private for a lot of different reasons, which I will not go into here. But we just felt it was appropriate for our family to help us grieve. Um, my father was in not great health for the last several years. So by the time we got to the point where my father actually passed away, we were all simply really exhausted. And then, because he was in assisted living, we had to deal with so many immediate details. Literally within 24 hours of him passing away, in terms of logistics and moving things out and all of these other things that people are very familiar with, the sandwich generation, right? That's what we're called. A lot of us are really familiar with how you almost don't even get a chance to grieve because there's all these things that you have to take care of and all these decisions you have to make. And so we just wanted to, for us as a family, be private. We are a pretty private family to begin with. And we wanted to do something that was just for our immediate family. So we did that, and it was very helpful. And so, one of the things that I am doing by choice, and it's not something I'm advertising or telling people or anything, is that I am wearing black. And I will wear black until I feel like it's appropriate, because I am mourning my father, and I'm mourning a lot of in a lot of different ways. Um, so, but it's I think it makes it even more difficult when there are no hard and fast rules anymore. My husband and I were talking about this, and when you don't really have a set way to express grief, it somewhat does make it a bit more difficult. It makes it more difficult for you. It makes it more difficult for the people around you on how to react to you, what to say to you, which I'm going to talk about some things here in a minute about that. So just, um, be aware that when you're grieving, do what you need to do. You know, if 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 you want to wear vibrant colors and and celebrate and remember the happy times, that society doesn't, um they don't really pay attention to that anymore, with the exception of one thing, and I will make that comment in just a second. And so, but for me, it's a way of honoring my father. I'm also wearing, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this because it's really small. So, my father was a veteran, and he was a member of the Big Red One. And that is a specific group in the Army. And so I'm also wearing his pin to honor him not only as my father, but as a veteran and for what he did during the Korean War. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the vets and the families who have lost loved ones. I have an uncle who is buried in the military cemetery in Florence, Italy, who was killed in World War II. Clearly, I never met him, but it's still good to honor those people that make that sacrifice. And I have his photo over here to remember the sacrifice that he made. And I'm wearing black because my father made a lot of sacrifices for me to have a better life in this country. So thank you for letting me share that personal information. Um, so to wrap up, I just wanted to give a few kind of tips and maybe suggestions for you. If you are going through something, the death of a loved one, or a coworker, or a pet, even, um, just or if you are on the other side and you have just learned of someone who has had a loss, um, it's very hard to know what to say. And almost immediately after my father passed away, I learned that my father's physician, who has become like a family member to us, that very unexpectedly her husband passed away. So we had my father's service, and then we turned around and we went to the funeral of her husband, which was very difficult for me personally. It was very difficult because my husband had a terminal illness for a while, and thank God he was healed and he's doing well now. But it was like all of these layers of memories and grief and just exhaustion. And so I just want to share a few things with you and what I've experienced, and also having not known her husband, what I'm feeling as someone who really loves her but didn't know her husband. So, first of all, like before you start to say a bunch of mindless, meaningless, trivial, rote things that people say, like, I'm sorry for your loss, right? And I don't mean to insult anyone who has said that to me or has said that to anyone, but just think about um, how you can make it a little bit more personal. Like with my father's physician, I know she loved her husband, such a family, um, such a great family. It looked like loved their kids and did everything together. And so, you know, what I am going to do for her did not come at the funeral. It's not coming by, sending flowers immediately upon finding out about this, but I am going to go to her office. And I know she loves chocolate. And it sounds very trivial, but I know that she knows that I have brought her chocolate, for years now. And my father would also offer her chocolate when she would come to see him in his room in his assisted living. So it's somewhat of a tradition that we had as a family to her. And I'm going to take a card and write something in there and say, I am heartbroken for you. What else can you say? Right? So if you know somebody, don't, just take a little bit more time. Take just 1 or 2 more seconds to say something that is going to be deep and meaningful. And trust me, being on the other end of that for the last several weeks, you can tell. I've had people write me the most amazing messages. And even if it's just like, we are praying for you, they they would go even a little bit farther and say, I am praying for you because I know you were the main caregiver. I am praying for you and your husband because I know you're struggling to take care of a lot of things right now. That's an entirely different messages than just, hey, thoughts and prayers. So, and for all of you who have sent me messages, I am very grateful. Don't get me wrong and take that the wrong way. Um, so we also went to this gentleman's service, my father's physician husband, and I was so pleased to see people wearing black. I've been to so many funerals within the last several years, even funerals where the daughters of their father were standing in front of the casket with what I could only describe as club wear on. So inappropriate, midriffs, cleavage. And I don't think I'm a prude because I wasn't the only one talking about it and how disrespectful it seemed to be, completely opposite of their father's personality and kind of what he stood for. And it just seemed like they were just there and didn't want to be there. And so, um, which is going to lead me to my next subject. So, just, you know, if you are attending a service, wear something subdued. Wear black or navy or dark gray because people will look at you, the people that are grieving. I certainly remember in several services for family members of my own looking at someone and going, wow, I you you really wore that. Um, and in this particular case, for the most part, everyone in the family was pretty well behaved until we got to a young lady, probably in her late teens, early 20s, who had on a midriff shirt and really ratty jeans and just so inappropriate. There's no excuse. You can't tell me people don't have enough money. You can't tell me. Look, trust me. I've lost everything and I've gained everything. Okay, you can go and get for pennies on the dollar dark pants and a dark shirt, dark skirt, dark shirt. Be respectful, show honor, and it makes you look bad. It makes you look like you don't care. And maybe you don't. Maybe you are so self centered that you don't care what everyone else is wearing. You don't care what's socially acceptable. And here I go on a rant, right? So, and that's what a lot of this channel is about is, okay, you don't have to care about what the world thinks about you 24/7. That is not what I am saying. But there are times and places where you wear and you speak and you act in a certain manner that is socially acceptable because it's the respectful and honorable thing to do for other people around you who may be a little more important than you are in that moment. My friend who was mourning the loss of her husband, whom she loved so deeply, needed to see other people mourning too. There is a great comfort in that when you're mourning the loss of someone you loved. Enough on that. So let me go back to the topic of what to say to someone, what to do for someone. Me, I ask people straight out. I say, I know this is not the time, but is there anything I can do? Can I bring you food like the good old Southern tradition, right? Can I pick up your dry cleaning? Can I come and clean your house? Can I come and help you move your parents' belongings out of their assisted living? I always go towards the logistical and practical suggestions because people a lot of times are so caught up in their grief, they don't think about that type of thing. And I'm the same exact way. I got so caught off guard and never even realized, oh my gosh, we're gonna, I thought I would have more time, etc. And fortunately, God bless my friends, Warren and Dale, and the other people from my dad's assisted living who came on their days off and helped us move my father's things out while I stood there in the middle of the room and cried. Right? That's just something you cannot replace a memory like that. You cannot it, 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 I just can't tell you how much I appreciated the people who did that. So um think about what you can do practically and logistically for someone. Do they have dogs or pets or whatever that maybe you could help them, or what, I don't know, whatever, just um, anything. Do they need to be driven somewhere? Do they need someone to help them return phone calls or write notes or whatever? And the time to do that is not necessarily right after someone passes away. So I had the thing that happened to me that really just touched my heart so much is I had the wife of one of my high school teachers who changed my life. Both of them did. She called me about 3 weeks after my dad passed away. It's like, after about 2 weeks, the flowers don't come anymore, the cards stop coming. You're and let me be frank, you're left with dead flowers and stuff everywhere that you have to clean up, and you're exhausted and you're crying because you saw a commercial on TV. Grief sometimes doesn't make any sense. And she just called me and she said, I waited to call you on purpose. And as soon as I heard her voice, I just burst into tears. And we just had the most lovely telephone visit for like 45 minutes. And we were talking about memories and all of these things. And so I'm going this week to go spend some time with her and have tea with her. And that that to me is the most thoughtful, wonderful gesture anyone could do. It's just after everybody else is gone, and everybody hears this, right? After everybody else is gone, after the food stops coming, after the cards stop coming, when the flowers start dying, and the person that calls and says, okay, now that you've had a time to breathe a little bit, how can I help you? What can we do? And I told her, I said, look, all I want to do is just spend some time with you. And so I'm getting to do that this week. So thank you, Miss Carpenter. I'm looking forward to our time together. Um, so those are just a few of my thoughts today. And if you have not experienced the death of someone, I want to leave you with one last tip, and that is that not everyone mourns. Not everyone grieves the passing of someone in their family. It's kind of a hard thing to say, um, but remember that before you open your mouth and say, oh, I'm sure you and your mother were so close. That's not always the case. We don't ever know what goes on behind closed doors. So take care with your words. I'm so blunt to say, if someone says to me, hey, my mom or dad passed away, I will actually look at them and say, is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing for you? how are you feeling about that? Because people just love to jump in and just start saying all this meaningless stuff when the person may not be mourning at all. So, anyway, thank you for letting me be personal, really, really personal today. And again, thank you to everyone who sent me so many, many, many lovely messages. My coworkers, my friends, friends of my husband. Um, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be posh and sharing these amazing memories of my father with me that I was not aware of, or I remember them myself and they brought a smile and a laugh to me and helped me to feel better and help me get through the process. Thank you so much, Posh Partners. Please like and subscribe, and I graciously appreciate you supporting me in my videos. I apologize I've been away for a bit, but now you know why. And I look forward to talking with you on my next video. Take care.